Fred Plykin live for us in Kyiv. Thank you so much for the update. We want to talk about what this strike means for the war with retired U.S. Army Major Mike Lyons. Sir, thank you so much for being with us. One detail from this story, sir, struck out to me. It was the limited time between the air alarms going off and the Russian strike hitting. I wonder what that tells you about Ukraine's air defense systems.
Well, Boris, thanks for having me. What it does tell me is that unfortunately Ukraine has had to have an economy of force with regards to its air defense systems and is likely protecting other areas. And it's not saying this wasn't protected here. Those systems are far out from where these locations are. However, in this case of having too many false positives, too many times where they have an alarm go off and nothing happens, then the population becomes somewhat immune to them. So in this case, it looks like they're going to have to go back and take a look at what that distance is. Perhaps these ones were more inside the system and they were not able, to respond with air defense systems back. But again, in some ways, the population has got to recognize there's probably going to be more false positives, and next time to get to those shelters if they can possibly do that.
Major, Kyiv is arguing that it needs more weapons to limit these strikes. The U.S., though, has provided air defense in nearly every single aid package it's sent over. It's also diverted some $2 billion meant for other countries to Ukraine. Do you think what Kyiv has is insufficient?
It's not enough, no question about that. That they've provided air defense systems in all different venues. For example, air defense systems that come, ballistic missiles from Russia that come from the sky, from airplanes and the like. Air defense systems have to exist in depth, kind of long, medium, and short range. And a lot of things that they're focused on right now is more closer to the front. They have to protect these assets back in Ukraine. This was a target that again likely was low on Ukraine's list, as they have to decide who they have to protect and who they don't have to protect. That it's important for them to protect critical infrastructure as well as the capital in Kyiv. So they could always use more, especially the Patriot missiles that would be effective against these kind of ballistic missile systems.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on this plan that President Zelensky says he's going to share with U.S. President Joe Biden at the UN General Assembly next week. It's a plan for victory in this war. What do you imagine that would look like?
It has to be about leverage that Ukraine has gained over Russia when it comes to their recent incursion into Kursk, into that region there. And in a way, perhaps it means they'll be willing to give up land in the south, in the Donbass region, an area that Russia has controlled for the past 7 or 8 years. But if they're going to negotiate, this is kind of the one last chance that the Biden administration can do something in order to try to get something done before the U.S. election, because I think Zelensky knows that Donald Trump is going to come in and likely put a chokehold on some of the supplies he's been getting. He knows that the Republicans themselves are not necessarily for what's going on there. So they're going to do what they can to stop it. And that means cutting down those supplies. So I think this is kind of his one last shot with this administration to try to gain leverage and get this negotiation over with.
On the note of what the Biden administration is allowing the Ukrainians to do, I'm curious what you think about the list of targets that Ukraine provided the Biden administration. These are targets inside Russia that they want to hit with U.S. weapons. What do you think the Ukrainians need to prove for the U.S. to lift restrictions on those kinds of attacks?
Well, they've got to be military targets, and they have to be in response to what's been coming from Russia towards Ukraine. And I do think that the administration should allow Ukraine to use those assets to that. This administration, as they look over the horizon, is trying to say, look, at some point, the United States is going to have a relationship with Russia when this is over. And I think that's what's holding them back here. But in the same token, we've given Ukraine the kind of capability that could force Russia to the negotiation table. So I do think that the administration should let them hit those military targets. They're doing it with drones that they're creating anyway. We saw them hit infrastructure sites to the north of Russia. But as long as they're military targets within the laws of land warfare, I don't see why not we wouldn't allow them to do that.
Major Mike Lyons, appreciate the analysis. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.